I'd like to begin with the following slide, which is a breakdown of the composition of U.S. economic growth. We have benchmarked the main sectors of the U.S. economy going back to 2003. So in 2003, everything is set to 100, and you can see that there is this wide divergence in terms of performance by economic sector. Let's talk about the weakest sector first. The line on the bottom is construction spending. Peak to trough, spending in the United States on new homes declined almost 60%. Spending by private entities, that is businesses, for corporate needs declined 40%. And so you can see that that line is still today below where it was a decade ago. This has been the single weakest portion of the U.S. economy. But let's take a look at the top line, which represents the exports from the United States. This is something that has grown about 65% over the last 9 years, which means that even including the financial crisis and the period of very severe recession, the U.S. economy has enjoyed average export growth of more than 6% a year. Not bad. And by the way, this happened during periods when the dollar was relatively weak, but also when the dollar was relatively strong. Most of what the United States sells is not very currency sensitive because it doesn't really sell on the basis of small changes in relative price. We are not competing, for example, with the low-cost competitors. What we are producing for export tend to be very high value-added goods and services, including technology, which leads, by the way, to the second strongest line on this exhibit, which is business equipment and software. Over the last 9 years, this is a category that, even including the severe recession, has increased more than 45%. And what we see is that there is this change in the balance of the U.S. economy. Obviously, less dependent than it was on incremental change in things like construction, dramatically more dependent upon things like business investment in equipment and those other things that enhance the productivity of our workers. Jacob mentioned that the productivity growth of the United States has been among the best in the world over the last several years. The average U.S. worker is more productive, that is, produces more per hour than employees anywhere else in the world. And so our unit labor costs have been under good control. And when we take a look at what we are exporting many of the same goods and services to other developed economies. The third line on this slide is the most disturbing of all, and that is the current situation, which was a combination of a severe decline in the economy because of the financial crisis, followed by the very difficult and deep recession. We lost 6% of the jobs in the United States at the worst point. Our recession ended in the summer of 2009, 2.5 years ago. And even though the economy is growing and corporate profits are increasing, we have only gotten back about 2% of the jobs. So when we look at what the most disappointing aspect has been, it clearly has been this phenomenon. And we also know that many of the people who lost their jobs in the beginning of this severe recession are the ones who are having the most difficulty finding new positions, often because they don't have the skills. We lost dramatic numbers of jobs from construction, and people who were construction workers don't necessarily know how to be computer programmers.